Hi, everybody. Welcome to Start Right Here. Today, I have the opportunity to talk to Starr Blackshere, who is an example of somebody talented in every aspect of beauty and found by trying every talent, she found her niche. And we're going to find out what it's like to find the sweet spot in beauty, to find what you're good at, and then to exploit your niche. I'm really excited to talk to Star today about finding the thing that really, really excites you the most, and then deciding, hey, this is it. I'm good at this, and this, but I'm going to stick with this one thing, and this is going to be my main thing. Welcome, Star.
Thank you so much. I'm a fan of your podcast, so I'm very excited to be a part of it. I can't believe it.
So I heard about Star before I met Star because Mimi Kamara told me if you're ever going to get your brows done, Star is the only one you should let touch your brows. And then Star told me that she loved my podcast, which was like the ultimate compliment to me. And I thought that was amazing. And then when she told me that, she didn't even know I had heard of her. That was an amazing thing.
Yes, it was.
So I'm gonna start with this question: who were your earliest beauty influences?
I would say my earliest beauty influences were pageants. So I grew up in San Diego, California, and
Okay.
happened to be working with the amazing Kiki Shepard's sister and mother, Von Gretchen Shepard and Dorothy Shepard. And I was a kid, so I had no idea like how amazing that was. But now I realize. But these glamazons were working in San Diego, hosting and producing pageants. And so when I was 5 years old, I was in the Little Miss Black San Diego pageant, and I sang and I performed and I walked and I dressed up and I glammed up and my hair was done and blush was on my cheeks. And I saw beautiful women doing the same thing. And that was my moment that I realized, oh, this is cool. It's a production, it's beautiful, and it's cool.
Now, how did they shape these early beauty influences shape your perceptions of beauty?
How did they shape my perceptions of beauty? I think because being in pageantry is a discipline that you have to
Mhm.
possess, right? You're trying to win a trophy and there are judges. So I learned a lot about poise and charisma, eye contact, all of those things at 5 years old I had to do in order to win and to be considered like graceful and talented. And I also had to sing, I had to perform. So I learned about engagement through beauty. And that's how they shape my perception is that have some poise, be put together, express yourself with charisma. It wasn't just about the glamour, it was about the connection.
Now, at 5 years old, you're a singer. That didn't come by accident because you had it in it came in the genes. So talk a little bit about that.
I would be at home and I remember my grandmother or my mother saying, okay, sing this. Okay, sing that. Okay, do that. Or they sing a note and then they say, okay, sing it like this. And I was just able to pick up the key and have good pitch and good tone. And I think in my family, there's always a singer or two in each generation. So I found that they look for the singer in the family. So I think when I was young, they realized, oh, she's got the tone, she's got the gift, and then they just had me go on and do it. And so at 5 for the pageant, I sang "Tomorrow" by Annie.
Okay.
So I remember practicing it in my living room quite a bit because I had to sing in my full chest voice. I had to express myself. I had to throw my arms out. I had to connect with the judges. And so they were training me at 5 years old to do that.
Now, they were training you because they were professionals, though.
Yes, my grandmother was a professional jazz singer. My great grandmother always was like the lead person in the churches that conducted the choirs, played the organ. My grandmother played the organ and things like that at church. And then my mom became an R&B singer. From San Diego, she would go back and forth to Los Angeles to record. And so that's how I learned about like professional recording. And yeah, they were grooming me to be a vocalist from the time I was young.
But then you kind of like detoured in that way.
Yeah.
But even as a child, you were excessive. Like you were looking at the beauty products that were around you. You were looking at them not just as, ooh, blush is pretty. Ooh, you were assessing what was good and what was bad about the products that were around you.
Yeah, I was assessing what was good and what was bad about the application. I think even though I was groomed to be a performing artist or just anything that I wanted to be, but they definitely started with that. I realized that I had a gift or a knack to, I always thought, oh, that could be a little better. I remember the blush was really red and it would just sit on the cheek. And I was like, that could be just a little better, just blend it out a little bit, or it can be improved to make the woman look more beautiful and less animated, or the product doesn't need to look like it's just sitting. I remember everyone wore Fashion Fair foundation and that sponge. I remember that sponge and the smell. And I remember my grandmother, oh my God, when she was running out and she's scraping the edges because it was like that rectangle and
Right.
the pink packaging, that pink compact, put the sponge inside, and she'd be scraping the edges. And we knew we had to run to the store and get some more Fashion Fair because she's running out. And the
Right.
lipsticks were red, but they were also shiny. And I just thought, oh gosh, it could be less shiny. Everything could just be more blended. It shouldn't look like it's just sitting on the face. I remember Fashion Fair made everyone's skin, instead of looking so powdery, it looked dewy, which I appreciated. But I remember as a kid just thinking like, how can we make this look more real? So that's always been my thing. I've always been obsessed with realism and hyper realism and wondering like, how can we do it, but then make it look like it's not wearing us, we're wearing it. It's just a behavior of ours. It's just something that we are without it being like noticeable or a big conversation. Like I've never been one that likes to walk in a room and people go, "Oh my gosh, look at you." Like something big has changed.
Right.
I hate that feeling. I don't actually like that compliment very much because then I go, "Oh shoot, maybe I'm falling off. I need to make sure that I stay consistent." So I just like things to be natural, but not natural as in nothingness, but natural as in it just looks like a part of you. And I think I've always been attracted to that.
I remember when I worked at Elle, the first time I got my makeup done at a photo shoot. I got back to the office and somebody said, "Girl, you look like you've been slapped in the face by Mary Kay."
Oh, see,
Yeah, that's not a good look.
I don't like
Ooh.
that.
Slapped in the face by Mary Kay. Ooh, yeah, not a good look.
Nope, not good.
No. So what so it what's interesting to me is that as you're assessing product, that was you developed a critical eye, but
Mhm.
what skill you developed first was hair. I think out of necessity it seemed, right? Why was it that at 9 you became skilled at doing your own hair?
I became skilled at 9 at doing my own hair because my grandmother wore wigs all the time. My mom pretty much was wearing like hair extensions or a ponytail, and they weren't very good at doing hair. My mom was okay, and she even went to cosmetology school to probably try to get a little better because she had an eye, she had style, but she didn't have the technical skills with her hands. Again, just going back to me going, oh, this could be a little better. My grandmother had no skills with hair. And I would get sent to everybody's house, both grandparents on both sides. I'd get sent to this one's house, that one's house, this lady up the street. I would just be in environments that I didn't like. I'm always at somebody's house. I hated their house. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be in here. I didn't like the way that they did my hair. Some people don't have a gentle touch. I'm a kid. And I was like, oh my God. And I would just either it was that or I looked crazy. Like my hair would just be sticking up on top of my head. So I just got in the mirror one day and sat on top of the countertop where the sink is, sat on top of that sink and was like, I'm going to figure this out. But I did have a little bit of guidance. I was asking these young girls that used to babysit me, like how they braid. And I remember one of them describing what they do and showing me. And I was like, okay, I think I can do it. And then so I got in the mirror and I wanted two cornrows. That's what I really
Mhm.
wanted. And so I did the part down the center and then I did the two cornrows on myself. And I remember everyone going like, how did this happen? Yeah, I braided my own hair. And after that, it was like, that's it. I don't want no, I got this. I got
Okay.
this. Yeah.
I understand. I definitely understand. And this led you to not only you start your own business. You went from doing your own hair to doing friends' hair to doing adult clients as a
Yes.
child.
Yes. So when by fifth grade, I started doing my friend's hair. I remember my friend Ebony Johnson. I'm still her friend to this day. I started doing her hair because she had the same problem I did. Her hair was sticking up on top of her head. And back then, everybody got a relaxer.
Right,
So, especially if your texture was strong, you
right,
had like strong roots that like really sat high at the root. And then
right,
the relaxed hair would just be typically over processed hair
right.
because you're trying to change one texture to another and it would just be sticking straight up. It'd just be like a point of demarcation where you had the thicker hair and then the relaxed hair. And my poor girl would just have her little ponies just sticking straight out like broomsticks. And I was like, ooh, Ebony, we got to fix this. And so I started fixing her hair. And then it went my hair. I would go to school. The girls would love my hair. So I started doing my friend's hair. Before you know it, at 15, I started braiding. It was my mom's friend Barbara. I remember she asked me, I no again, it was like she had braids, but they weren't as good. I was like, this could be a little better if it was just like, why didn't they just do this or do that? And she was like, then why don't you do it? And I was like, I think I can do it. And I got that synthetic hair and I gave her a bob and I burnt the ends and had it in a perfect like bend and everything. And that's when I learned to braid with tension so that you got that nice bend back in the day when we
Hmm.
liked that bob to have a curl underneath
Right.
that. And after that's how I started attracting adult clients.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So, shortly after high school, you were already going to Bonner Brothers.
Yes, I went to Bronner Brothers. It was either 98 or 99, but it had to be 98. Yeah, it was 98. And Sam Fine had just launched his book, Fine Beauty. And I
Hmm.
remember he was doing a master class at the Bronner Brothers. And I was just praying. I was like, I got to get there. I got to be there. And I went to his class. And I remember how I was so in awe, but also perplexed by all the products he was using. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to learn how to do this? This is like he just, the dimension that he would do and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to get this right. So his class for me was really a master class. It was like, okay, it's going to take some time before you realize how to do this. But I remember I was there and I took a picture with him and he signed my book and I still have my book. I still have my
Wow.
signed autographed book from Sam Fine and a picture of he and I was like 18 years old and it's right in the front of I glued it to inside my book.
I love that.
Yeah.
We've got to show Sam that. Oh, we have to show Sam that.
I definitely did a post about it like last year or the year before and
Hmm.
he saw it. He definitely saw the post.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Because I think it was
So,
an anniversary of his book or something that happened not
mhm.
too long ago. Yeah.
So what's interesting is though, so then you had your cosmetology license, but did you have it before you turned 18?
No, I got my license at the spring of 2000, so I was 20.
Oh,
So I was 19, about to turn 20, something like that. Yeah.
okay. So you worked in, but you were working in a salon before you got your license?
Yes, I was working in the salon because I graduated a year early from high school, which I regret because
Hmm.
all I ended up doing is have to be an adult while all my friends were doing like senior prom and all that stuff. So I thought it was a good idea at the time, but it really wasn't. So I definitely told my daughter that was not a good choice and I don't
Right.
recommend that for her. But I ended up just working in the salon thinking like, okay, I'm ready for prime time. I want to get in the industry now. I want to start now. And so I started and I was working at a really hot salon in San Diego. It was like known as the best one. It was called Artistic Trends. and it was really amazing. There was like 17 booths there. They were beautiful. The furniture was beautiful and the vibe was right. People used to drive through the parking lots just to see the women walking out. There was a barber there. He happened to be from the East Coast, so he had the cool swag and the style and the accent. His name was John. I remember him so well. It was just a vibe. It was like San Diego was just having a moment, a cultural moment. And I was there, and I was the youngest, of course, but I got to be mentored by all of these amazing stylists. And I was always
Hmm.
so curious about everything that they were willing to share with me whatever they knew.
That's
Yeah.
so. Was that the salon that had? Were you the only black person there, or that was
No,
later?
that happened after cosmetology school. So when
Oh,
I
so
went
that
to
was
cosmetology,
later. So this was the one before.
yeah,
This
this was
was
before,
before.
when I was scared. When I worked at Artistic Trends, it was so popular that anyone that didn't look like one of our clients, I was getting a little spooked thinking that state board was going to come in and embarrass me in front of all of my peers. And I was like,
Hmm.
I can't do this. So my nerves just got the best of me, and I decided to go to school because I was supposed to be doing an apprenticeship program there,
Right.
but my hours weren't being calculated. It just, after a while, I saw that I was like, I think I'm just going to and I was booth renting. I'm like, I think I'm just going to be booth renting forever and never get licensed.
Right.
So let me go ahead and do this properly, because I don't like the spook every single time someone that looks like they're not really a client is like walking in. So
Yeah.
I went, but I said, let me be calculating about this and go to a school where I can learn something new. I had already had all of this experience with some of the best stylists in the area at Artistic Trends, and we even competed at Bronner Brothers and things like that. So I wanted to have some new experiences. I realized that I saw some habits at the salon that I didn't love when I was at Artistic Trends. Sitting the client under the dryer for 45 minutes with conditioner on so you can do another client. Clients waiting in the seats, waiting to get seat. I'm like, why do they have an appointment when you ain't nowhere near done? This is crazy. I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Give me 15 minutes, and it's an hour. So I started to see habits that I found I was modeling myself after. But when I did it, I felt extremely uncomfortable. I didn't like the way the client started to fidget. I didn't like the looks, the stares. I was like, oh my God, I can't work like this. This is not the way to do it. So I decided, let me go learn some new things. Let me figure out what everyone in the beauty industry is doing. Another thing that wasn't as strong at Artistic Trends was hair color. Back then, we would always like bond. We would do a lot of the gluing in of the tracks, the wefts in the hair. And so that was very popular. So you can buy a red or a yellow or a copper and bond it in, and then
Right.
you'd have your highlights. That's how we did it. But I wanted to know how to do hair color.
Right.
So I decided, okay, I know how to do crazy updos, everything someone wants to wear to church, a French roll, a twist, a waterfall, a finger wave. I got that down, but I cannot color any hair. My cutting skills are a little janky. So I was like, let me go to Poway, which was like 45 minutes out, and I was the only black student at that cosmetology school. So I went to Poway Academy, and luckily we had an amazing instructor that was like obsessed with hair color and neutralizing color specifically, because she hated when blondes were coppery and red, and she
Right.
always wanted to neutralize and make them cooler and add green and add blue and this and that. And it was just fascinating to me. So I went there and did that. And that's when I learned about how other salons that were non-black, how they operated. We would go visit these salons, and they would be less booth rental salons. They would be commission based salons. So I got
Right.
to learn a different business model when I went to that school. And that was really exciting for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, we're not really doing this in the black community. We are usually setting up a beautiful salon and then just renting out the chairs, in which, for me, I didn't love how the chairs would, every stylist would have different products that they use, or they would work in a different way. Again, having their clients waiting. So now the salon is full of waiting patrons. You've got so many different products on the shelves that, like, it's just looking very hodgepodge. And I saw this beautiful salon at Artistic Trends begin to look a little junky,
Hmm.
so to speak,
Yeah.
for lack of better words. And I was like, oh my gosh, this has all got to be fixed. But then I learned, oh, when I went to Poway and we would go to some of these salons that only use one particular product line because they wanted
Right.
to retail it. Oh, okay. It looks more uniform. It's a better experience for the client. They have people that specialize in cut or color. And I just saw a different business model. And so that really influenced me, along with a lot of the things that they do at the black salons, like using those Marcel irons to really get that root and really transform the hair. Like, I just got to see the best of both worlds.
Right. To marry those skills, because when you look at, um, say, in a like a general market salon, for example, they can get people in and out because the hair dries very quickly. They can cut the hair. Where with us, we might take a little longer to get the style done, et
Yes.
cetera, et cetera. In that way, when they try to do that with us, we that won't work. But I like when I do like that. That's a Sassoon model also, where
Yes.
somebody's a specialist in color. I do like a great color specialist.
Yes.
Especially because I had blonde hair for like 14 years.
Okay.
To
Wow.
have, I would go to a colorist. I never
Yes.
went to just someone random to color. I did do that once, and my hair turned out orange.
Right. Yeah.
Orange.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bozo the Clown orange.
Dang. Yeah.
Bozo the Clown orange. And everybody was like, okay. And then I had to go back to my colorist at Warren Jacome and
Uh-huh.
say,
With your head and your tail between your legs.
and
Yeah.
everybody was like, orange.
Oh, they
You're
talked about you, I'm
orange.
sure, after you
Yes,
left.
they
Like,
did.
oh my
Yes, they
God,
did.
get there.
Orange.
Yeah, so I started working at an all white salon after leaving school because I realized I need to continue to practice this model. I need to practice these skill sets. And luckily, I ended up working with this stylist named Laura Day, and she was obsessed too. I met another obsessed colorist, and then that's how I got really masterful with hair color and color theory, which helps me a lot with what I do now.
Oh,
Mhm.
I see that. That would make sense
Yep.
because yes. Yes, and then from that transition, yes, that makes sense. So, as you worked on hair, what made you transition to other areas of beauty? Because it sounds like you were engrossed in that as you worked on hair color. What precipitated the transition into makeup?
Again, going back to the pageants, I just always love the way if a woman is going to look beautiful, she needs everything done, right? And ooh, you just sparked something that I didn't consider, but I'm considering now because I remember when we did our first entry of a hair book, like a hair magazine. So
Hmm.
Artistic Trends was very popular. Even though it was little San Diego, we were popping just nationally in the US as a
Right.
really high end, talented black salon. And so we were in the hair magazines. And I remember there was
Oh,
this
wow.
makeup artist who came down from LA and she was supposed to be so fabulous and she did all these jobs. So I was like, oh my God, this is going to be epic. I'm going to do this hairstyle. She is going to slay my model, which was my best friend, who is still my current best friend, Deani. Like, I had her as my model. She's naturally beautiful. She has great teeth. And I was like, okay, it's a no brainer. All you have to do is just put a little makeup on her, done, and fix her eyebrows. So I had the woman tweeze her eyebrows. Child, she tweezed her eyebrows to sticks. So I was already like, oh my God. So I started to have to micromanage the situation. And I'm all nervous because this is about to be in a magazine. And we didn't have all this other social stuff. So it's, girl, you messing up my opportunity in the
Right.
magazine. Okay. So she basically thinned out my best friend's beautiful eyebrows. So I knew that I was definitely stressed. And then the makeup was subpar. And I was like, okay, so now I know I'm going to have to do
You have to
the
fix it.
makeup for anything that I do. I'm going to have to do the hair because I also am a creative and I had vision. I didn't just want to do a beautiful hairstyle. I had a very specific look. She had an afro weave and then the front did a thing and I had silky dreads involved. It was like a whole look that I was trying to be innovative and influence.
Right.
And the makeup was like totally fell flat. So that's when I think I really was inspired to start to master makeup for myself. And there was this woman named Kendra that worked at Artistic Trends. And I asked her, how do you get your makeup to look like your eyeshadow to look good? Give me a tip. She was like, just always blend. She was like, make sure everything is blended. And I remember she told me that, and I was like, got it. Okay. So from there, I always made sure that things were very blended. I still tell my clients to this day when I'm teaching, blending is all about moving color, not adding color, because I think many people go into an eyeshadow to blend another, and then it just gets all muddy and it never looks
Hmm.
pro. So I always recommend to get like a dry brush and then move the color so then
Okay.
it blends out. You get a blow. And that came from Kendra when I was like 18 years old.
Interesting.
Yep. So that's how I started desiring to do makeup. And I think I'm sure Kendra is probably the one who introduced me to Mac. She was just fly. She was an amazingly fly woman. She was very full figured and she was sexy and she just knew how to carry herself. And she taught me a lot about just being every woman, being anything. You did not have to look like what the standard of beauty is in
Right.
the magazines. She slayed every single day, from her hair to her makeup and the way she wore her garments on her body. I was just a sponge. I was just taking in so many beautiful mentors and just seeing how I could name a lot of people right now. I can name a lot of people right now that
Yeah.
like really guided me with just how to be a young woman and a young artist. And I started shopping at Mac, at the Mac store in Fashion Valley Mall, and I bought my clear lip glass, and I started to buy all of the typical colors that brown people like: our complexion, the Oh Baby lip gloss, the chestnut
Hmm.
pencil, the amber lights eyeshadow, the bronze eyeshadow. And that was the look. And then you get your studio fix. And that was when it's like, hey, mom, grandma, look, we can wear studio fix. We don't have to wear fashion fair alone, or we can combine them, or we can just wear this powder and get less of a dewy finish, because it was like fashion fair was like overly dewy. It had a lot of gloss.
Yes.
So then we started wearing it more matte and just evolving our look. And
Yes.
so I started
So
shopping at Mac.
when did you set your sights on wanting to work there?
I set my sights on wanting to work for Mac when I joined cosmetology school, because when I was in cosmetology school, I was still working at a salon, a smaller salon. I was trying to stay low key, right? So I just was in a 3-chair salon with another one of my mentors, Scotty, and he and I just had a room together and we were just slaying hair. And then I was going to school part time all the way up in Poway. So I thought, because I was in a different community and a different
Right.
part of town, completely different area, that my clients wouldn't know that I was in cosmetology school. I was trying to tuck it and hide it. And
Hmm.
essentially, word got out that this girl is doing this really amazing comb twist at the beauty school. And at the time, I was doing a lot of the Charger players and their friends. And one of the guys was dating someone out in Poway. And she was like, you don't need to go pay. At the time, I was charging $50. You don't need to go pay $50 for that stylist. There's a girl at the beauty school that her designs look just like yours, and it's $5. So he booked an appointment with this girl at the beauty school. And so I was mortified when my client showed up, and also felt a little betrayed too, because I was like, what are you doing here for a $5 hairdo? Word got out that someone was doing hair really good at the beauty school, and my actual client booked with me. So then that's when I was like, all right, I got to get out of the salon completely until I am licensed and I don't have to
Right.
deal with any more like embarrassment shenanigans. So
Right.
that's when I started to pursue working like a job that I got paid just an hourly wage. But I was like, I
Right.
can't work anywhere. So that's when I started to pursue MAC Cosmetics, the
Hmm.
MAC store specifically, because I like the way MAC stores allowed you to wear whatever clothes that you wanted to wear and express yourself, as long as it was 100% black. We were
Hmm.
able to like really do our eyes, really do our outfits. You can wear a short mini skirt if you want. You can wear a fishnet hose. It wasn't like Nordstrom where they had to wear like a certain type of collar and all that. So I pursued the Mac store, and I stayed at Mac stores from 99 to 2009.
But once you got into Mac, you were like, this is where I want to be.
Oh yeah, no, it was what a gift. It could bring me to tears. Like I benefited so much from that company. For one, I learned corporate manners and how to be a professional in a corporate way. I learned numbers, business, the things that we have to pay attention to grow a business. I did a lot of different roles like a pro artist and artist trainer, and also a little bit of management for a stint, but I didn't stay there too long because I realized I was like, I really just want to do the artistry. But I learned
Right.
a lot while I was in management. I learned that we were comparing numbers from last year and we were writing notes last year. It rained this day. That's why we had an event, but then it didn't do too well. It was like storming cats and dogs outside. So you had all those things to compare. And that taught me a lot about what your gaze is with business. So that was one huge benefit with Mac. Also, all of the colors, all of the products and the trainings, the education. So
Right.
I still am able to take that education and use that today in my own business. And also just the peers, because we were able to be ourselves. Mac, they always said all races, all ages, all sexes, all Mac, and that that just resonated with me. We were always inclusive. We were always just all about being oneself and expressing oneself creatively. My peers, my coworkers would have a rockabilly look. One would be like completely punk rock. One would be hip hop. One would be super classic and chic. It was just, you would see how each person wore their eyeliner, each person wore that same product. We all wore a Mac. So, this one wore this product a certain way, and you would learn from that. So it was education just in movement every single day. You go to work and you learn something new from your peers.
What I find interesting is that so you took you went to Mac as a way as an opportunity, not as an opportunity, as a you did it because you didn't want you were in beauty school and you tried to do something different, right? So it wasn't really like I got to go work for Mac. I really need to work for Mac. It was more like I'm going to work for Mac right now because I'm in beauty school and I got to do this. And it became this conduit for you.
Yeah. But
In
it
in a
wasn't, I'm going to work for Mac. It was, I hope that Mac will accept me, because at
right,
the time I didn't see a lot of black artists there at all. So it wasn't known for a black person to be there. They did have RuPaul as a Viva Glam spokesmodel, but in general, it was mostly white images, even though they had colors for us all the way down to N9 and C8. And then they had the W series that was a little bit deeper and very warm. It was still I never felt like they weren't inclusive, but there was still like a lot of opportunities for diversity at the time. We're talking about like the late 90s,
right,
and all of the masters that worked there were not black. So I was just hoping that they would accept me. And so when I had my interview, I made sure that my model was white. And so I practiced on one of my classmates from beauty school, and she was able to be my model. And I wanted to show range and show that I could accommodate like every customer. And
right.
so I nailed that and I was hired. But I was just hoping that I would get an opportunity to work there, because none of my peers, I don't think, had ambitions to work for Mac at the time, and no one I spoke to did. It was really just an independent thing that I did on my own, because I wanted to be where fashion was. I wanted to be where it was glam and where I could learn more about editorial looks, and I could really express myself and my creativity without limits or boundaries.
Yeah. And but it became a conduit for you in more ways than one because Mac is the reason you got to New York City.
Mac is how I got to New York City. My mom used to visit New York City in the 90s, and she would tell me about how fly it was and what she was doing and what she was wearing. And I was like, okay, noted. I'm definitely going to make it there. But then there was this one magazine store in San Diego and North Park that would have all those international magazines. So you've got the
Right.
International Vogues and all the hair magazines. It was
Mhm.
just like, oh my God, I would look at those magazines and go, I need to be able to do this. This is what I want to do. I want my work
Right.
in in these magazines. I want to do this type of model. I want this work. And I just realized I'm looking at LA and I'm like, nah, everything in LA is just so commercial. I have to go to New York. Then they started showing like New York Fashion Week on the little like local television shows.
Uh-huh.
I would see those runway shows. I was like, oh no, I got to do this. And then the supermodels were so big: Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, Naomi Campbell, Christy Turlington. I was like, okay, no, I need to be in that world. So it wasn't just about doing hair at the salon. I wanted to go bigger. I wanted to go broader. And I kept a gaze on New York. And through Mac, they would always do job postings up. And so once I felt like I was in that place of getting promoted, I was capable of doing something really big, I decided to apply for some New York gigs. And it also was a coincidence because I had applied for a training job in San Diego and I didn't get it.
Okay.
And I was like, that's all right. I'm going to go to New York and I'm going
Oh,
to be there.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
that's right.
so the local thing wasn't working, but the New York thing they did work. So it's bigger, it was better.
Oh yeah. So I moved to New York. I got the job to open the Mac Harlem store on 125th Street. And because my grandmother was a jazz singer my entire life, and I always was the little kid sitting in the back of the jazz joints, as well as being in the church, I was just so amazed that I was going to be in Harlem. I could not
Right.
wait to see what Harlem was like. I had never been to New York before, but once I got the position, which was a phone interview, I just took my little sack. It was basically a carry on with black clothes in it. And luckily it was summertime, so I had clothes that I could wear because I had never seen snow and I had never owned a coat, like a heavy coat before. So I was like, okay, I'll figure it out
Wow.
when I'm there. I will definitely figure it out. But right now I'm going to make it there with these black clothes. That's going to work for June. And
Right.
I moved here and opened that store.
It's amazing.
Hmm.
That's such a great story.
Can't believe it. I can't believe I'm still here, but I am.
And so that experience and just what was the reception like of the first Mac store in Harlem? Like that's a moment in time.
Oh my
That's a
God.
historical moment.
It felt historical because what I was surprised by, just when at the time Craigslist was happening, I remember looking on Craigslist for apartments and things like that. I remember trying to do my research before I had my interview of what the average household income was at the time in the area, because I had to try to project like what numbers we make at that store and how I would help them to produce that, because honestly, I was only able to apply for a very specific position, which was a key holder, but I wanted the assistant manager position because I knew that I needed more money to live in New York. So I was like, oh
Right.
my God, I have to impress in this interview. And I just prayed. I'm like, okay, I need this assistant manager position. So I'm going to interview as if I am applying for the assistant manager position in hopes that they will randomly offer me. But guess what happened? I got offered the assistant manager position. So it worked out. My intentions really worked out. But I think
Right.
it's because I had done so much research and I was prepared with the numbers. Essentially went there and was like, oh my gosh, Harlem was not then 20 years ago what it is today. You had a lot going on with like different income and things like that. So we were selling lip glosses for $15, and then the pencils I think were like 11.50 at the time, and the foundations were like $28. And I remember a lot of the clientele just going, whoa, this is expensive. And I'm like, how are we going to make these numbers? So that was some of the hardship of opening a store on 125th at the time. But some of the amazing moments that happened to me as a little girl from San Diego was folks would walk in and they'd say, Mac on 125th? Mac on 125th? And they would just stand there. It would happen all the time. And I would just be so enlightened by that because I'm like, wow, look at this. Look at the impression that this is giving. This is exciting the community a lot. And I love it. And I love their accent. And I love how they're calling it 1 2 5th. Like, I was just like, this is crazy. Like, I am just in my life right now. Or like how there was a lot going on the street still in Harlem
Right.
20 years ago. So, you know, you had dudes walking by, like the soundtrack of Mac, the Mac store was like, Lucy's 2 for 5, 2 for 5. And I was like, what is a
It's still like
Lucy? And like, it took me like months to figure out what a Lucy was. And I'm like, oh, it's a cigarette. Okay. People want to buy one cigarette. They don't want to just buy
that.
the pack. So I just learned how like people are living like a completely different lifestyle and how they're like piecemealing and getting a little bit of this and doing a little bit of that. And it was
Mhm.
just hair braiding mist. As soon as you walk out of the train, you get offered hair braiding mist by the African hair braiders. As soon as you exit the train station, it was just stimulating and exciting literally
I'm
every single
laughing
day.
because I grew up in New York, so I'm just laughing because it's different. I guess it's very different if you don't grow up in New York.
Oh,
That it's like culture shock.
oh,
Like,
it's cultural amazement. It is cultural amazement. Like, I'm
okay,
still a Black woman in Harlem. So it's like I'm with my people, right? But it's like I'm from San Diego. It's completely different landscape, culturally different sounds. I was like, this is amazing. As a young woman in Harlem, I just got my life.
so in all five boroughs, there's a version of 125th Street in all five. I don't know about Staten Island, but in the Bronx, in
Okay.
Brooklyn, in Queens, for sure, there are a version of that everywhere. So we
Yeah.
have. So I grew up in Queens. Jamaica Avenue was like that when I was growing up. So I just like.
Right?
So I can relate.
I'm telling you. I'm
So
telling you.
yeah, like yeah,
It's
we're used to
amazing.
that. So
It was amazing. And we had really cool events. They definitely supported the location a lot. We had Khalees come in. We had Mary J. Blige come in. We had Fantasia come in. Fantasia actually slipped me her brother's phone number, which was really funny. And I went and hung out with them that night.
that's fun.
Yep. So I was getting my life. It was so fun. That's when I learned. I don't know if she still does, but I remember Mary J. Blige only preferred Fiji water. And I was like, ooh, Fiji. So I learned about Fiji. I was just constantly just a sponge. I was just a sponge. I still am. But one of the things I wanted to mention about MAC Cosmetics at the time and having a Harlem store was that they had to learn. I think the company learned that you cannot service this community and have a store in Harlem without having Black images,
Right.
Black and brown specifically, Black and brown images in the windows, because they would have these beautiful photo shoots and they'd just be like this massive image of the model and the product. And it got really awkward when it was like Mac on 1 2 5th, all white women. That just didn't work for the diversity of the brand and where the brand was trying to reach. And so they had to pivot quickly. And I really think it attributed to the Mac Harlem location because there was that big window display. And then also down at King's Plaza, where they had a really big population of clients that were more Caribbean
Right. That location.
population down
Mhm.
there. I had never even been there, but I just knew that it was always a conversation about the Harlem location and Kings Plaza and how the women are like, what's up? Okay, can we see what this product looks like on us? And so I appreciated how Mac responded quickly because it didn't take too long for them to start diversifying their images. And now you see everybody in a Mac image. I think Mac saw it maybe at the time as we've got Missy Elliott, we have Little Kim, we have RuPaul as reps for, and then they did those little brands like little lip glosses and stuff like that. But essentially, it was helpful. It was very helpful. It moved the needle with the brand.
That's good. I think I think that was good. So when you moved uptown to the Flatiron District and you were, what was the difference in the job? How did you?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that was the Mac Pro showroom, which no
Yeah.
longer exists the same way. It's in a different location and it's smaller. But when they opened the
Mhm.
showroom, it was a whole concept store. It was really interesting. It had a library, a beauty library of all these amazing books historical books. I don't know where the heck they got them from, but amazing books all on beauty. They were it was highly curated. They had a photo studio. They had brand new Apple computers there so that artists could come in and do their research, print things out. It was just beautifully designed, great natural light, all of that. And it was just where the best of the best work. If you worked at the pro showroom, you were the best. You felt like you were the best in the company outside of the senior artists who were like the people who were trained to speak to the media. Like the senior artists are trained to speak to media. And that was a lesson too. It was like, oh, like you're being taught and you are talented in speaking about the product on camera, and that's amazing. So there's still some amazing artists that I know now still have relationships with that are senior artists with Mac. But
Great.
that was what was cool about that experience. It's just really being unique, working with folks in theater. Then they started to send me out to do celebrities, because if celebrities at the time or anyone who represented them wanted a Mac artist or Mac product to be used on them, they would ask the pro store, they would ask the reps that represented the artist at the pro store. And that's how I started to be able to do celebrity makeup. And also, that's when I really was able to do all of the shows, all of the New York Fashion Week shows. So that gave me so much editorial experience. And I think that's how I became really masterful with my makeup artistry, was those fashion shows, because you're working with Charlotte Tilbury, you're
Right.
working with Pat McGrath, you're working on these teams of amazing, like women who have their own brands now that are known globally. Those names weren't known globally the same way, the way they are with just like mass market. But at the time, like we're working with them. They're the
Right.
key to a show. They're the key artist, and we are recreating their looks. And nothing makes you more masterful than having to actually watch the master do the work, and then you have to go and recreate it on different models.
Yeah, I think that's exciting though too. So the
Super.
pivoting again, like just refining again. So it's becoming like, so you go broad, then you go,
Yes.
you narrow again, then you narrow again,
Yep.
and then you narrow again, and you start looking at brows a little bit as you work at a small business next, and you're looking at brows and doing brows in the window. Just are you first starting to just um, shape brows? Is that the first step in it?
I've always done brows since high school. So it was like ninth
Okay.
grade that I started really doing myself and my peers' brows. So not only was it hair, it was eyebrows, because
Okay.
my eyebrows were always very flat and very low.
Mhm.
And then with my hooded lids, I was just like, and my forehead, I'm like, these brows are just not serving me. I don't know what's going on. Like my brows and my teeth have always been something that I'm like, what is happening? Like, why didn't I get more balance or bigger features here? But the teeth are going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars to fix. But the brows, I was able to do that myself. And with a little bit of talent, I just started to focus on it. And so I always did brows. It was always a focus for me. And I remember in '04, I asked Fatima Thomas, who is a senior artist, I asked her, how do I get the brows to look more textured and more feathery? Because at the time I only did like the weight line on the top and the bottom. She was
Right.
like, draw texture. I was like, oh. So she's like, draw lines, draw them up and down. And so that's when I started to design my brows more and be more intentional about filling them in. And I remember
Mhm.
I would do brows all the time at Mac. I would fill in the brows. I would, like, we couldn't tweeze at the studio at the time,
Right.
but I would take the concealer and cut underneath. Most people didn't have much brow hair then anyway. They always
Right.
over waxed. So then you're
Right.
just really giving them more brow with product, and then you're putting concealer under, you're selling the pencil, you're selling the brush, you're selling the concealer. And I just knew that was how I was able to like definitely sell three products. You need this pencil, this concealer, or at the time, a lot of times we did the eyeshadow, the angle brush, and the concealer. So that's three items. Here you go. Get some brow gel, blah, blah, blah. I always did brows. It was always a focus for me. To this day, I did a makeup today. I did the brows before I did anything else. I did skincare. I wiped the brow area with a little bit of alcohol just so that it's drier so I can grab the pencil. And then I filled in the brow first on the client. And then I started to build the face. So for me, brows are like, they're another feature. It's like having ears. Like you need a good brow, you need ears. Like for whatever reason, without ears, we look weird. It's like crazy. They're not really offering anything, but we're more human looking when we have ears. And I just think we just look more like ourselves as well when we have great brows. So I started to do brows in a small business in Brooklyn in the window. And that's how I became very practiced with tweezing and waxing and removing hairs, and also doing lash extensions, like more express lash extensions, clusters where you take the Ardell
Right.
clusters and you pop them on with adhesive. And sometimes I would take mascara and then, or show the clients how to do it themselves. I'd tell them to put the mascara on. I'm still telling you guys, anyone who's listening, take some mascara, put it on. It helps build a nice black base. And then you can dip your clusters in a little bit of black adhesive and then just fill the little gaps. And that's a great way to get like a beautiful, professional looking lash application with ease. If you try to put them on without that mascara, they're falling, they're flopping. Don't do it. Put the mascara on first
Okay.
and create
I'll
that
take your word for it. I'm hopeless in that area. Hopeless. Hopeless. We'll have to
okay.
talk about that.
Then you come to me, you come to Blackshere Beauty and you get your
Yeah,
lashes.
we'll talk about that
Yeah.
because that is just hopeless. I'm telling you. But let's talk about just the techniques that you've learned because whew, the way that you create brows. I want to talk about how you've learned them and the different techniques that you use now because they are incredible. And and there is an art and a science to this that um, that is there. The art itself is really to be studied. And I think that there are people that do lots of different techniques, but you do several, right? So I think that people always go, "Do you do like microblading?" But there is more than that that can be done. And I think people need to understand that there are choices to be made when you're getting their brow. When you're if you're choosing to get your brows done, that you should do your research, right?
Yeah. So speaking of microblading, I have not performed microblading since I opened my studio in 2021, just because I naturally attract a lot of melanated women and men. And so I found when I started doing microblading that there's not enough contrast in the colors that we use. No one wants a black eyebrow. We want a brown eyebrow, right? Most of us want a brown eyebrow. And if black is used at all, it would only be like at the weight line of the brow just to make that area pop in contrast to our skin. But no one wants a black eyebrow. And when you actually, and the pigments, the cosmetic pigments that we use to implant into the skin behave differently once they're healed in the skin. Going back to MAC, because there's no coincidence with this, my journey is really intertwined. Going back to MAC, that's when I was first offered to help with testing out new colors. They would give us A and B and let us know what you think. So we would be consulting, like, do not make this, make that. We need more of this. So I started to become like a part of a product testing group. And then from there, I was offered by someone who used to work for MAC that hired me to do product testing and shade extensions for Black Opal and another company called Julep. And so with my hair background and the all the color theory I knew from that, going into helping with cosmetic brands to extend to do their shade extensions for deeper skin tones, and then getting into permanent makeup, I was naturally like, let me make sure these colors sit nice in this skin. So that was, I think a lot of people walked into doing microblading thinking I'm going to give an eyebrow, I need it to be dark enough to show up. And my whole thing, because I'm a makeup artist, I never want my peers to shudder at my work because it doesn't look good. So I naturally, my ego felt a sense of pressure. I need to make sure that if any makeup artist sees my work, they're impressed and they're not like completely gobsmacked by it, not in a good way.
Right.
So for me, naturally, I remember when we made colors like corduroy eyeshadow, we would use that in the brow. I use that in the brow a lot instead of other colors. Like in the 90s, we loved to use brune. It was very cool black. It was like a cool brown. And it was dope because we had the powder face with the studio fix, and then we do the extreme brow and the shape, and we would use brune. It was beautiful. And then we started to warm up and soften. We were inspired by Sam Fine and his bleached brows and Kevin O'Quan. We would start to soften up those colors. So I would use corduroy instead of brune. I would use espresso, which was a softer brown. And then as women would come in that were deeper skin tone, oh, here goes the problem. All the artists were using carbon black. And then, oh, I mixed a little carbon with a little espresso. I'm like, oh my God, we need a real brow color. So that's when I remember we started to consult with this color called Embark. Embark, I was like, it needs to be way more red because this woman named Joy that worked for Mac would use chestnut pencil in her brows, and it was the perfect warm brown. And I
Hmm.
always truly admired that. She started doing Patti LaBelle's makeup because she was so dope with her look. And so when she would use that chestnut, the only drawback is that it was an emollient based pencil. So it was waxy, right? So you get that
Okay.
shine. So we needed eyeshadow colors that would be deeper and warmer. So with that experience with colors and seeing how the colors sat on top of the skin, I already knew when I learned microblading, I'm not gonna if we just use this blackish brown in the skin. So
Right.
naturally, I wanted depth, but I wanted warmth. And so microblading, you it only really shows up on deeper skin tones if you put the strokes really close together. But because of that, you end up getting all of this migration. And most people end up looking like they have powder brow, which is like a block, and it's just not as beautiful as they hope for. So, nano is a technique where you use an actual device where it's a single needle, sometimes needle groupings, but I compare it to more a sewing machine, the precision of a sewing machine, where you get like an actual, like, stippled dot that's implanted very shallowly in the skin, and therefore the color is healing closer to the surface of the skin, so you see the actual color. So for me, it's more about makeup artistry always. It always goes back to how beautiful things look on the person when it's healed. And it goes back to just how makeup artistry should look on one's face, whether it's implanted in the skin or sitting on top. So
Hmm.
I've extended my education since 2014 with permanent brows and permanent makeup. And I do some manual techniques sometimes to enhance, but most of my work is all done with machine so that I get that beautiful implantation of color and I'm able to use more warmth. Even with fair skin tones, we still need it to look pencily and warm and natural. Not warm as in orange, but warm as in neutral and warm, not gray, not green, not dead, not that dead color. We need
Right.
it to look alive.
But what I want to say is about your technique is the artistry involved is that you will draw it on. Like it is like that the way that you want it to look so that we
Yes.
can see as a client can see how it is going to look before you even start.
Yeah, I think that's really important. For me, a client experience is very important. I don't consider myself super vain, but I am particular. And
Mhm.
so I think I attract a lot of women and men who are very particular. And they're not too much for me because they're to me a part of my tribe. I appreciate someone who is discerning, who has a point of view, and who is particular. So someone who says, "Oh, I know I'm a lot, this and that," I'm like, "You're not a lot for me because I might be more." Because when it comes to your face, we need to make sure it looks right, you're comfortable with it, and that it doesn't, that your mind is at rest and your mind is quiet. So I
Right.
always, again, it always needs to look like makeup artistry to me when it comes to a permanent brow or a brow art style, because I'm not implanting hairs. And so I
Right.
think that's a real piece that we all need to come to terms with and understand. We're not implanting hairs, we are implanting color, and we are trying to create a three-dimensional effect. But for me, I think sometimes we get too caught up on hyperrealism. It really needs to look like a very beautiful eyebrow, whether it's a textural beautiful eyebrow, or it's a defined beautiful eyebrow, or a blow of color. So I like to freehand and sit my client in the mirror and show them what the design is going to look like, because I like every step of my client experience to be an experience of confidence and comfort. So the confidence come from, you're in the mirror, you see what's going on. You're not going to have this surprise where now we're debating on how did we go wrong and how did we take the wrong turn. So
Right.
that's where you have to you have to have confidence to really draw someone's brow and say, this is what I want to put on you. Because essentially what we have to understand is that when someone's putting a permanent work on your face, or any cosmetic work on your face, it's like a signature. They're using their hand. So no one's hand is going to be the same. I don't care how many classes one takes. It can look very similar, but it's not going to be the same signature. So you're really
Right.
choosing an artist for their signature. And so that's what I'm offering. I am offering my signature, I'm offering my design, and I'm offering my point of view in regards to how beautiful that color and that shape and that texture looks on you. And that's what brow art is all about to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what made you want to open your own studio, Blackshere Beauty?
I always wanted to have my own studio. I really wanted to have a one stop shop, problem solve type space, but I realized, whoa, especially with doing hair, I love transformation and I take on big projects. I'm talking about 10-hour hair color, and then, oh, we got to color the hair extensions because they need to match perfectly, and then all of that. And I have definitely like overdone everything for a beautiful result, and I will continue to. So because I know that about my personality,
Hmm.
I decided not to open a hair studio at all or add hair services to this business model. Instead, lash extensions, makeup artistry, everything under the makeup art umbrella is what I
Right.
decided to do, because I remember when I was doing hair, I really longed to do more makeup, and I would get sad. I would get really sad because I love the transformation and the feeling of when someone's face looks really beautiful. I just love, I think we love our hair to look good, but we always put our face forward, right? It's all about
Right.
your expression on your face. I wear my hair back in a ponytail. I've been wearing my hair back in a ponytail for 10 years now, because once
Mhm.
I had my second child, I realized like I got to be present for certain things, and a hairstyle for me and my lifestyle is just not it. So I was like, thank God I'm going to do the Sade vibes, and it's going back. And it's been like that ever since. She's getting older. So I'm starting to feel like, ooh, okay, I'm ready for a couple of little dangles in the front, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I've always been a busybody. So it's great that I don't have bracelets or necklaces or hair in my face. That's just how I like to operate for the most part.
It's also what you
I
do
lost
for a
my train of
living.
thought here.
The hair is not something that could be hanging.
Yeah, I don't like, yeah, when I'm servicing a person, I just like them to be the focus. So when I opened this business, I just wanted it to be a makeup art studio where, because to me, the premise is that New York to me is fly. I'm not from New York originally. So everything I think about New York is like, it's the best. This is the best. That's the best. This is the best. This, they got the best that. We got the best everything. And then there were aspects of servicing these women who I think are so amazing, like working with celebrity, right? I realize celebrities are amazing. They are incredible. They are talented. They are disciplined and all of those things. But when I look around New York and I see all of my clients, they are like celebrities to me. They are beautiful. They are disciplined. They are talented. And they're all of these things. So it's the same to me, except you get access to them. You get to share stories with them, and they're not so guarded, and they don't have so much to protect, so to speak. So for me, I was like, I just really want to make a contribution to New York now.
Hmm.
And I need the business model to work, and I need it to be something that really makes sense and really services the community that comes to the studio. So it's all about makeup artistry. And with that, I want it to be the
Yeah.
best brows, the best lash, the best beauty education, the best makeup artistry. And that's how this studio came to be, because it was just a correlation of everything I've learned my whole life and everything that I keep my gaze on, which is always the same things: makeup artistry, beauty, transformation, editorial work. Those are all the things that I look at, other than food.
Yeah, that
Food and
makes sense.
occasional puppy.
Right. So, what has been the most challenging part of running your business?
The most challenging part about running my business has been building a team. Yeah, and I was really surprised because I have not had any problems building a clientele. I can build a clientele in my sleep. It's really interesting. A lot of referrals, a lot of people just come through the door, and I'm so amazed by all the diversity and variety that comes through. But building a team has been more challenging, and I realized that it's a special skill. Like everything in a business is a skill set, right? So I've talked to you about all of these skill sets that I've acquired, but I think as working as an employee, I did not learn how to just be an employer. So with being an employer, you have to be very clear on concept. You have to be very clear on like the personalities that you want to hire and how they accommodate your customers. So I think my opportunity initially has always been to learn the customer. And I think that's just a learning curve that you can't avoid. You can do a business plan, but you don't get to decide how the world uses it, right?
Right.
So when I did my business plan, most of it is gone to plan, but then you don't know the hundreds of people that are going to come in and why they come and how frequently they're going to come and how they're going to use the space. Now I think I have just such a better idea 3 years out of how people want to use the space and how the space services them and their personal needs. So I think that I feel much better about team building now, but that was initially like the biggest challenge for me because I think that there was just too many other areas to learn in order to find the right fit with the clientele and how to service the clientele. And I think
Right.
even though I definitely was all about customer service, I think I had to learn about who my client avatar really is. And that was just another thing that you just have to be in it and learn that and realize the client avatar looks like this and they operate like this and they want that. And I can capitalize on that. I can make that bigger and better, right? And that's what they would want from me. And I can do that. But the most important thing is you have to learn who that person is and who they are as a collective. I think now I have a better sense of that, but that's just wasn't something that I was privy to when I first opened.
Yeah. So you sort of answered the challenges of entrepreneurship. I think that. And then I would just ask as a final question, what would you say success as a creative means what?
Success as a creative. Ooh, success as a creative means what?
How would you define success as a creative?
Oh, how would I define success as a creative?
Yes,
Okay, I would define success as a creative. You have to be joyful.
I told you, a sister,
She loves you. She wants to talk to you at 10
other
o'clock at
sister.
night.
Go ahead.
Okay. I would describe success as a creative as you have to be joyful. And anything that you do is going to be hard work. You have to show up all the time, be very consistent. And with that, I think that joy is paramount. That's success as a creative. Whether you're making a lot of money, whether you're making a little bit of money, whether all the jobs are flowing in, because sometimes you can be stressed because there's too many jobs. You can be stressed because there's not enough jobs. You can be stressed because you have too much materials. You don't have enough material. There's always a reason to feel slighted by whatever you're doing. So, success to me is the joy. If you're able to possess harmony in yourself and have a lot of joy in your heart and your spirit, no matter what, on a daily basis, you are a successful creative. And I believe that creativity needs the joy. I think that the joy sparks more creativity. So that also just contributes to your success. So I protect my joy. And I learned that when I was working with celebrities, and there were times I would walk in a room and I felt like they weren't very trusting towards me. And I would think, why the heck am I here? I'm like, girl, then you need to build a team that of people on a daily basis. But don't give me the weird vibes. I'm gonna come in here and make you look crazy. You should do your due diligence and have an artist that you always work with. But don't have the new girl come in and then make it all weird. I would go home feeling like drained and not very like high energy after that. And
Yeah.
it did not
Yeah.
protect my joy. So I think that's when I made the decision that whatever I do in my creative journey, my joy is going to be protected. And so I think joy is a successful creative. If you're joyful, you are a successful creative.
On that note, thank you, Sky. Oh, thank you, Star. I said Sky. I know I'm tired, girl. On that note, thank you, Star. That was an amazing answer. That was
Oh,
amazing.
good.
And this was an amazing conversation.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you so
It
much for
was
the
great.
opportunity, Corinne. I really appreciate you. You are very beautiful. I love seeing you and I love listening to your podcast. And I wish you all the best because I'm definitely a fan.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you. And
welcome.
thank you to the family for hanging out tonight. Because I
Oh,
know.
yeah. My children have been with me on my back. I've done services with them in the baby carrier on my back. So they're my ride or dies.